Realme's GT has just released in Europe finally, and then this Samsung Galaxy S21. It's been out for a while and it's a flagship, of course, from them. And I wanted to compare both of these flagships to find out if the Realme GT is really a flagship killer. It does sell for a very good price here, currently at the time of this video, under 400 euros versus the about 600 euros to pick up a Galaxy S21 here in Europe. So this is obviously, being the European version, the Exynos 2100 model. This has the Snapdragon 888. Both have 8GB of RAM, both of them 128GB of UFS 3.1 storage. We have a 4000 mAh battery with the Samsung versus a 4500. 65 watt fast charging versus 25 watt charging, and some other big differences that I will go over in this in-depth comparison to find out the differences between the Realme GT and the Galaxy S21. Then inside the box, what is included with Realme, we get a 65 watt charger which fully charges the phone, and they claim 35 minutes. My testing, it's more like 39 minutes, but it's really, really fast. And we get a Type-C to Type-C cable, TPU case is included. And then Samsung, wow, it's a tiny box because it does not include a charger at all. We get just a Type-C to Type-C cable and then the included paperwork. That's it. If you want a case, if you need a charger, the Type-C charger, you have to pay additional and buy those accessories. So the difference of weight here with them, we have about 185 grams versus about 171 here with the Samsung. The size difference, obviously because the smaller screen on the Samsung, 6.2 inches versus 6.43. Thickness-wise, there is a bit of a difference here as well. We are looking at about 8.5 millimeters according to my measurements versus then about 8 with the Samsung. So there's not too much in it there. But the plastic that is used on the back of the Samsung, it does pick up a lot of fingerprints. And because we have this fake leather style, which is quite nice, it's a synthetic material here with the Realme, it doesn't pick up any fingerprints, but this plastic strip here does, okay? That's glossy, it will be easy to scratch. We've got our camera module right there. And with the camera module here on the Samsung, this one has alloy around it. Now, the frame around the outside of the Samsung and the buttons are metal. And in hand, it actually, to me, feels a little better. I like the size of it. The 6.2 is quite nice to be a slightly smaller phone. And the lighter weight to it as well, you do notice slightly there, being about 15 grams lighter. Now with the Realme here, frame around the outside, it looks like it's metal, but trust me, it is not, okay? It's plastic all around the outside of this one. And then with the ports, so looking at the bottom of both of these phones here, Type-C port on the Realme GT is just USB 2 speed, sadly, which for a flagship, that's a little slow, but we have USB 3.1 speed, so the faster port here with the Samsung, but it also has another edge, and that is it supports video out of this port, their desktop mode. So we've got the two downwards firing loudspeakers. Both of these models here have loudspeakers with the earpiece as well. And then 3.5 millimeter on the Realme GT. This is something I still love to have in my phones, and great to see that it is there. Now, AKG tuned sound with Samsung. And then when we take a look at the top here, we do have a secondary microphone, and there's an additional two there with the Samsung. You can see the antenna lines here. Obviously with the plastic frame, it doesn't need the gap in the middle for the antenna line. That's why the Realme does not have it. So the earpieces, they're located in the top just here. Now there is a tiny little gap with the Samsung for the earpiece. And here we've got like the grill too with the Realme. So you can just see that there. And then our fingerprint readers, so these ones are always on capacitive, and both of them are very, very quick. So on the Realme, it takes, you can see, like a second. And with the Samsung, just going to tap there to wake it up. It's about the same. It is very, very quick there, okay? So they both unlock, I would have to say, really about equal speeds to me, to my eyes. They are very, very quick, both of them with the animations. I'll just do that Realme again. Okay, that was a quick tap. So yeah, they're excellent. Now both of them also have face unlocking too from their front-facing cameras. Now when you look at the bezels on these displays, the chin is clearly smaller here on the S21. Now the GT, a little bit more of a chin, and the left and right bezels, you can see they're slightly thicker on the Realme GT there too. Now I do prefer the more symmetrical in the middle here, centered front-facing 10 megapixel camera there with the Galaxy S21, and in the corner here, this one's 16 megapixels with the Realme GT. Now, the rear of them, looking at their cameras, there will be a camera comparison in this in-depth comparison, but we have have a main 64 megapixel camera. We've got an 8 megapixel ultra wide and a 2 megapixel macro with the Realme GT here. Samsung, they step it up a little bit more here. We've got a 12 megapixel ultra wide, 64 megapixel zoom camera, which is 3 times, and that's mostly actually digital to get that 3 times, and then a main 12 megapixel sensor. That one has optical image stabilization. The cameras on the Realme, none of them have any optical image stabilization. They just use electronic. With the displays, as I mentioned, we have 6.2 inches versus 6.43. So a slight difference. It's slightly larger. There's not really that much in it. Now, they're both very bright screens. So on the Realme, I measure around about 780 nits on this model here that I have, and then about close to almost 900, about 881 nits here with the Samsung Galaxy S21. So it's a slightly brighter screen, so therefore a more superior screen there. So 120 hertz on both of them. Both have the same resolution of 1080 by 2400 maximum. And they are really good screens. So you can't go wrong with either of them here. But if you use your phone a lot in direct sunlight, the Samsung can boost all the way up to 1300 nits. Just to point out too that both of these phones, they take dual nano SIMs, 5G support, both run Android 11, both have NFC support. Both of them also have 8 gigabytes of RAM, UFS 3.1 storage, both 128 gigabytes. But there's a difference here. While they're running Android 11, of course, we do have Samsung's own One UI 3.1 with this. A lot of features on there, and animations seem to be very smooth. It's very fluid. And then with the Realme GT here, we have their Realme UI 2.0. So that banding you're seeing on camera, that's because there's no DC dimming coming through on these displays a little bit. So both of them feel very, very quick here. Now, I think the edge would actually go to the Realme GT here in terms of the UI performance. It just seems a little quicker to me. Why is that? Well, I've discovered that the animations definitely seem to be a lot quicker. Now, this is out of the box, okay? I'm not tweaking anything with developer settings. I'm not changing animations. It just seems that with the Realme UI, it's a little quicker there and very, very quick performance overall, loading apps and everything. So I won't do any of those silly speed tests because we have a difference in chipsets here, of course. Snapdragon 888 and then the Exynos 2100 with the Samsung. Why do I not have the same chipset? Well, that's because this one is the European version, the only version I can get locally. Otherwise, I would love to compare Snapdragon 888 versus Snapdragon 888, of course. When you get both of these phones out of the box, you will find quite a bit of pre-installed bloatware. Now, the Samsung had the least amount of bloatware in the beginning, but there was a firmware update that came through, and it added more bloatware. As you can see, I removed some things, and then some more bloat came through, like TikTok and whatnot. And we've got Facebook and LinkedIn and a few other bloatware apps on the Realme as well. So for flagships, they shouldn't really have this kind of bloatware present because, after all, we're paying for a flagship. They shouldn't be putting these pre-installed apps on there. But it's not too hard to remove them, of course. But I just want to point that out. So big difference in the chipset performance. And I have seen this and done real-world tests before in the past that the Exynos, to me, the 2100 is an inferior chip compared to the Snapdragon 888. Not only in benchmarks, but later on in real-world use. In gaming especially, you do actually notice these kind of slight differences once you've used both of the phones and you swap between them. So on the CPU side, it's not too bad, but you can see the gap there with the GPU is huge. Now, that's a massive difference there. The GPU scores, or when it comes to gaming performance, as mentioned, you will actually see that. So here, the internal storage on both of them, UFS 3.1, and they are both very quick. The Samsung has a slight advantage there on the sequential speeds and some of the randoms there. But, I mean, both of them are really, really quick here. So you can almost say that's about a tie there. But the sequentials writes a little bit faster there on the Samsung. So it does have the faster storage there too. So wildlife, this is a 3D stress test. And, well, as expected, the Snapdragon 888 does better here, doesn't it? Slightly higher score here, slightly better average frame rate. So if you're worried about your gaming performance, you're really into your games, and you want the best gaming performance, and you're not too fussed about, say, the cameras, then I would definitely go with the GT because of that. And you'll see later on when I do the little gaming test. So wireless performance here. Now, something was going on with my router, but hey, both phones were connected up to the router, and they both didn't do well at all for maximum speeds. However, I did find the Realme GT, with my router, it seems to be overheating at the moment with summer temperatures, it still managed to get a faster speed there. Lower faster speed at the point downstairs versus the Samsung. So if wireless performance, you must have the absolute top best download speeds for wireless performance, then I think the GT definitely does perform a little bit better there. Now, GPS, different here, different chipset manufacturers, of course, here. However, look at the difference on the amount of satellites that the Qualcomm sees. It gets an accuracy of 3 meters. The Exynos gets an accuracy of 4. But look at the average signal strength is very important to look at. It's actually better on the Exynos here. Now, walking around, I found that to me, it looked like, even though the accuracy doesn't look as good here, that the Exynos was doing a slightly better job at times, probably because of the average signal strength. Although the sheer number of GPS satellites that it locks onto is impressive on the GT. Onto our audio quality now. So we've got 3.5mm jack support here with the GT, which is great to have. And then the S21, well, you have to use a Type-C adapter with that one. Now the quality out of it does then sound actually, when using the digital to analog with the Samsung, sounds better to me. However, the loudspeakers on these were AKG tuned, so coming out of the bottom on both of them, then out of the earpiece, I do actually find the Realme GT to be slightly louder and to my ears actually a little bit better than the Samsung. So for the headphone users out there using Type-C, the Samsung gets the win, but for the loudspeakers, the GT gets a win. And I'll play both of them now, the same track at 100% volume, and you can hear for yourself. Now with gaming performance, it is very similar. However, with a game like PUBG, there is a difference with the graphics settings that PUBG will allow. So this is the Samsung at the top. Anything but smooth, and it will not allow us to have the extreme frame rate option, which is the one we want. However, with the Realme GT, look at this. We can use balanced and HD, or with the extreme frame rate option, so you can get the higher looking better graphics. Now I will set them both here just to smooth, and that will give us the best frame rate there, and we'll take a look at some of the gameplay and what you can expect. Now when looking at the performance in game here, it feels very, very similar, but I've noticed that when I scroll around like really fast, it should come through on camera, that it actually does seem to look a lot and feel a lot smoother on the Realme GT. So reflecting what we're also seeing with the synthetic benchmarks coming through with gaming performance, that even on the smooth setting here, just looking around, that's with the Galaxy S21, and again with the Realme, it just does seem to be a little bit smoother there. And you can check on that frame rate, of course, bringing up the game center here, and you can see that it's a constant 60 frames per second, well, 59 frames per second. And with the Samsung, I believe it is almost exactly the same, but just sometimes looking around, it may lose just a couple of frames there. But it is a flagship phone still. Both of them have flagship gaming performance. Just, I feel the edge definitely goes to the Realme GT in gaming performance. And now our battery life. So of course we've got a 500 milliamp hour difference here. This has a larger battery, the Realme GT, 4,500 milliamp hours versus 4,000. Now both of them were calibrated to 200 nits, both at 120 hertz. And this is the difference. So almost 2 hours and a half difference. You're looking around about 6 to 7 hours of on-screen time. That is 120 hertz. And around then about 8 hours maximum on-screen time. So the difference is really only about real-world use here again of about 45 minutes more additional time at 120 hertz, that is, you'll be able to get out of the Realme GT. Now this one charges faster, of course, so it took about 40 minutes. It's 39 to 40 minutes to fully charge at 65 watts versus 1 hour and 11 minutes at 25 watts with the Samsung Galaxy S21, which is a lot slower. Moving over to our cameras now, I do believe that the Samsung S21 has the edge here with better video quality, better photo quality, as you will see between both of these that I'm comparing. Now this is front-facing video. From the 10 megapixel camera on the Samsung, we can shoot up to 4K 60, and with the Realme GT, we only have 1080p. Now both of them do have very good electronic image stabilization, but a clear advantage here with the resolution on the Samsung. I'll swap over to the rear cameras now. Ultra wide now, so they both have another difference here with the resolution. So 1080p maximum with the ultra wide on the Realme GT's camera, and again the Samsung can shoot 4K 30 and 4K 60 with its ultra-wide camera, so it has a clear advantage here with the video performance, just capturing more detail. So I'll jog ahead slightly. We can see now that electronic image stabilization working. Main camera is now 12 megapixels with the optical image stabilization, phase detection, autofocus with the Samsung, and with the Realme GT it is a 64 megapixel sensor that doesn't have any optical image stabilization, so it's all electronic. Now stability on both of them looks very good, but at times I think the GT here with 4K footage now, 4K 30, does look a little more stable looking there at the castle. Now you can apply zoom, digital zoom on both of these to zoom a little bit closer, so I just do a little bit here. So that's just 1.5 and 1.6 here, 1.5 again on both of them there, and just a short little jog ahead. That is when you notice that then the Samsung S21, Galaxy S21 is looking a lot better when you move around a lot. It doesn't tend to shake around as bad. Alright, so I keep it simple here with a recap. Better cameras, slightly better build quality, slightly better screen, video out, IP rating, wireless charging. That is the reason then to go for the Galaxy S21. But if you want to have better gaming performance, slightly better battery life, I'm not talking a lot, only about 35-45 minutes more of on-screen time you'll be able to get out of the Realme GT versus the Galaxy S21, which is not huge, but because 120 Hz is a huge taxing a refresh rate on any kind of phone, it burns through it quite quickly. But the better battery life, gaming performance, and the Snapdragon 888 clearly to me is superior to the Exynos 2100. It is a slightly inferior chip, and I just don't really think it is flagship performance, and you see it everywhere. It's a fast phone, don't get me wrong. It's just when you game and other things like synthetic benchmarks, you do notice the differences there that, yeah, this one definitely performs a lot better. So we have the 65-watt fast charging, and that's very quick, so only about 35 to 40 minutes. In my testing, it's 40 minutes, and this one will take about an hour and 10 minutes, so a lot slower. Samsung's falling behind on their charging rates, definitely. They need to pick that up in 2021. And the other thing with this, of course, the big factor is if you're on a budget but you want a flagship, then clearly this one is so much cheaper. You're looking at around 600 or so euros versus around 380, 370 with coupons and things from AliExpress at the time of this video, that is, to get the Realme GT. So thank you so much for watching this comparison between these two flagships. Did you agree with my findings? If you didn't, let me know in the comments. And do like and subscribe if you want to see more up and coming videos just like this one.